Have you ever noticed while visiting a grand cathedral, palace or government building that the entryway is absolutely massive? Like more than twice the height of any normal person. You're not alone. A lot of people have noticed this, and some believe the explanation may be far more fascinating than others. That shows up in Old World, Tartarian architecture discussions, and even in myths about giants, Nephilim, Titans, etc. Let's explore it from both the mainstream historical perspective and the alternative view. Many cathedrals, palaces, and government buildings in Europe, the Americas, and Asia have massive entryways far taller than any human needs. Some examples: 20 feet tall arched doors, oversized windows and staircases. Doors within doors, a huge portal with a smaller door cut inside it. And this is just a small sampling. There are literally thousands of buildings across the globe with these features. The question is why? Why would builders construct a door 3 times taller than the people using it? Did it serve a symbolic purpose? Or was it functional for a different kind of being? Before we look at the more fantastical explanations, let's examine the mainstream historical explanation. As with many things, there are multiple answers depending on the structure and time period. But broadly speaking, historians and architects point to 3 main reasons for such large entryways. First, symbolism of power and divinity. In architecture, scale equals power. Tall doors in cathedrals and temples make humans feel small before God or the state. Think of it like the columns and arches in ancient Roman buildings. They're meant to impress visitors and remind them of the might of Rome. Similarly, palaces use huge doors to awe and intimidate visitors. Sometimes they were even set at an angle to make the structure look steeper and more imposing. Of course, there is also the famous story of Napoleon having the hinges removed from the gates of the Cathedral of Notre Dame so his horse-drawn carriage could pass through. So maybe those massive doors were just for him. Second, processions. Many large portals were actually for wagons, horses, or ceremonial processions, especially in government buildings, palaces, and sometimes churches. Think of it like a stable or a barn door. The opening is large enough for a team of oxen or horses to walk through with a cart or chariot. This would have been common in the pre-automobile era. Smaller pedestrian doors were added inside the larger frame for everyday use. Third, architectural style. Gothic, Baroque, and neoclassical architecture all have a distinct style that emphasizes verticality. Tall spires, vaulted ceilings, and giant entryways are all part of the design language. They want to draw your eyes heavenward, so the large doors aren't just for functionality. They're part of the building's aesthetic. Now let's move on to the alternative interpretation of these giant doorways. Mainstream historians generally dismiss these theories, but a lot of people have noticed the giant doors and are wondering if there is more to the story. Most theories link these oversized doorways to ancient giant beings, like the Nephilim or a taller pre-flood race described in various mythologies around the world. Some suggest that giants like the antediluvians from the Book of Enoch were 15 to 20 feet tall. We know that people were generally shorter in the past, so if they were 6, 8 feet taller than today's population, that would explain the giant doorways. Other theories suggest that giants were simply taller versions of regular humans, maybe 8 to 12 feet tall, who lived before the biblical flood. There is also the idea that these structures were inherited from an earlier civilization that was wiped out by a cataclysm like a mud flood or some other great reset. Later populations moved into these old structures and repurposed them, but they couldn't alter the massive doorways and windows designed for much taller people. This is related to the Tartarian civilization hypothesis. A global, advanced culture, sometimes called Tartaria, built monumental architecture with giant doors, windows, and ceilings not suited for ordinary humans. After a cataclysm, likely a massive flood, most of their cities were destroyed and only a few remained. These structures were then inherited by populations who were much less advanced technologically and who were shorter in stature. For these smaller people, the buildings became too monumental and overwhelming. They didn't have the skills or knowledge to maintain such grand structures, so most fell into disrepair. However, they didn't know how to build smaller homes and shops, so they adapted what was left of the grand buildings by adding new walls and making smaller doorways and windows, where the giants had none. Some people who believe in this theory claim that evidence of Tartaria can be found all over the world, from North America to Eurasia. Proponents point out that many frontier or early colonial towns quickly adopted monumental old world architecture complete with giant portals, which seems out of place for small communities with limited technology. They argue that these giant doors don't match the scale of the average person, and no matter what the mainstream narrative says, it's clear the buildings from an earlier time were constructed with much taller individuals in mind. There are dozens of additional theories that try to explain the giant doors, ranging from misinterpretations of biblical accounts to UFOs and everything in between. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to see more.